Welcome to the Builders Podcast, episode 93, Kristi Spencer. Learn about etiquette related to teams, customer service, clients, and more. Before we jump into this episode, please subscribe to this podcast, hit that notification bell if you're on YouTube, and after a listen, please give us a thumbs up, like, and share, if we've earned it. With your help, we can reach more people and deliver these valuable from the trenches lessons to those that need it. Enjoy the episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another The Builders. Today, we are joined by Kristi Spencer. So Kristi is an etiquette consultant. I've never talked to an etiquette consultant before, so this is exciting. She's the founder of The Polite Company, which is an awesome name. So we are obviously going to talk about that, about business etiquette, probably, since this is a business podcast, probably revolve around that. But we're also going to talk about her entrepreneurial journey, as we always do, to get to know Kristi a little bit and see how she ended up where she is today, doing the awesome things she's doing. First of all, tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up. Now, this can be the short version, a long version, whatever you feel like today. We're flexible here. Whatever you think would be interesting around the context of business. Like, who influenced you, or when did you first get that inkling that you wanted to go into business for yourself or help others? What did that look like?
Well, I had worked in television newsrooms for several decades, and I was a producer and then I was a news director for over 20 years, which meant that I was over newsrooms but I always loved learning, and I loved reporting on things, and I loved researching things. And one of my lifelong passions was etiquette. And so it was something that probably piqued my interest. I lived overseas when I was a teenager, and I just always had an interest in etiquette and how we affect and impact those around us by our actions. And so I checked off one of my bucket list things to do during COVID. And it was really because I wanted to do something that was positive. And I found that, and then realized there was this entire community of people who their entire mission was to help people. And we do that through etiquette. And once I started doing that, I didn't want to stop. And so made a big career change and started my own company and started teaching people to use etiquette to their advantage.
Wow. So why were you done with the news situation? Like you have decades in this industry, and now it's time for me to start a business. What happened there?
It was, it wasn't something that I intended to do as quickly as I did, but it was just trying to exist and have a side hustle, which sounds so easy that you can do it on the side. But when you have a full-time job, that's tough. And then when you find that sparks your passion, more than what you're doing. And, I didn't feel like a quitter after a couple of decades. That's about 20 years longer than most people make it in the news industry, because it's a really high burnout rate. And so I just felt like this was kind of just a natural evolution. I'm still learning. I'm still in the business world. I'm still helping people. I'm still teaching people, which is what I did as a news director for so many years. It's just a different way to go about it.
What, from a business perspective, what do you think people struggle the most with in that realm, in terms of, etiquette?
Yeah, I think, self-awareness and empathy are two things that people struggle with. And I think that has magnified over the last few years, because I think that workplaces have, you definitely know they're more spread out than they used to be, not together as much as they used to be. And there's a lot of stress. I mean, work from home, teaching your kids from home, all of these things, doing more with less, and fewer people, not being able to hire people. All of these factors create stress. And when we're stressed, we start to look inward and less outward. And then what happens is then we act more with, less civility when we're looking at ourselves and being very introspective and thinking about me. And then we stop thinking about other people. Well, then that causes incivility. Well, then that incivility causes stress. And it's just this vicious cycle that keeps going on until somebody decides, I'm going to do something to break this cycle of incivility and stress.
So really stress is at the crux of this. It's you actually learning etiquette and learning how to think of others actually helps you as well in a kind of circular way.
Right. And it's very, you do have to focus on yourself, but you have to focus on yourself looking through the lens of how you're impacting the situation and how you're changing the situation by your actions or reactions. And so it's being very thoughtful in what you do, what you say, and, the workplace culture that you're creating.
So are you focused more here on the workplace in terms of employees and the organization or the team? Or does this, obviously it leaks over into actually dealing with your customers or your clients or your audience, whoever that is as well, right?
Yes. I mean, it can be, from worker to worker, in-house civility to customer service. I help people who are just trying to maybe start their own business or want to create their own personal branding. And so your image and your brand have a lot to do with etiquette as well. So there's a wide range. My certification is in business etiquette training, but there's a lot of social etiquette that goes into that. We're learning about dining, we're learning about invitations, we're learning about networking and things like that. So it was kind of adulting etiquette was the course that I took, and really I just thought it was so useful in my own life, and then thought be useful for others.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting how your real life and just being able to socialize with people in general kind of bleeds into what you do in your business as well. You're not a different person. You're still everyone's human. So whether you're hanging out with friends or you're hanging out with your coworkers, that same framework should be there to care about each other. And that's really what it's all about.
And
right?
That's what makes, comes from a place of honesty within yourself. You can be thinking about other people and you can, try to make the right decisions. But if it doesn't come from a place of genuine honesty and, sincerity, then it's lost. You might as well not do anything as opposed to do something in a sarcastic or insincere way.
Yeah, but that's easier for some than others, I would imagine. I mean, you've probably worked with people that don't naturally care about others, or they're more self-centered, or they're more. I think you, like it said, we have to work on ourselves too. We have to actually understand our own emotions and how we deal with things in a situation. I think about like in my business, in my agency, in my team, like I try to always build a relationship with them so I can understand them better and care about what they're doing and stuff. And that's more, and then in terms of the etiquette is just, in what context. So let's talk about teams for a second. Let's narrow this a little bit. Let's talk about teams. So what things should we be thinking about in terms of etiquette when, let's say, just teams in general, whether it's a team lead or somebody that's like the founder or whatever, working with a team or whatever, what things should we be thinking about around etiquette specifically?
I think it's how we conduct meetings and, being prepared, allowing everyone who's been asked to be there to get a chance to say something. I don't know how many times you've been in a meeting and no one's asked you your opinion or asking, you're thinking, why am I even here? I'm just, checking the box that I attended this. So I think, with leaders, they can definitely communicate more clearly. They can I think, there's every mode of communication. I teach email etiquette, phone etiquette, virtual meeting etiquette, all of these kinds of things, but you can't rely on any one of those things all the time. So sometimes, I say for emails, it's the who, what, when, where rule. If you're getting into why or those kinds of things, pick up the phone and talk to people. So really knowing which mode of communication matches the situation and don't rely too heavily on one or the other. But I think, just having a genuine interest in people. And sometimes that's something that you have to even schedule because, you get so weighed down with day to day. You have to make that into your schedule of, how can I connect with somebody? What's important to them? How can I show that I'm, practicing empathy with them? And sometimes that it is a difficult job when you have a big team.
Yeah, I think a big part of that too, right, is respecting people's time, and like you mentioned that sometimes there's a good reason to have a meeting in person. Sometimes email makes more sense, and that's part of that etiquette. Is that like having people on. Anytime we try to have meetings, I think we're pretty good at this with my clients and with my team and stuff. It's usually there's a very specific reason you're on that call. You're contributing in some way. You're not. We're only asking the people to be there that need to be there. Normally, we try to be pretty good about that. But it's also like, and I've been on meetings I haven't been in charge of. Sometimes somebody else is running that meeting or something. And but as somebody that's run meetings, I'm like. I try to always be conscious of all the people on the call and make sure everybody is engaged with that call. And I think video meetings makes it more interesting because you can see how people are presenting themselves, and if they're getting bored or they're kind of gauging that too, that probably helps a lot. So
I think there's a lot that came up during the pandemic, and virtual meetings is one of those things where sometimes we don't have a lot of systems around those, or we don't have any standards for them. So some cameras are on, some cameras are off, some people are muted, some people aren't muted. And I think it really helps just to start a meeting with, here are the ground rules. Here's what we're going to do. Here's who's going to talk. Here's how we're going to, manage that. I just think that just a few minutes just to go over those kinds of things takes out that questioning that people have of, well, should I have my video on, or should I be talking, or am I going to be called on? I think that, laying that out in the beginning is a really efficient way to do that. And it's, also polite and considerate.
Yeah. All right. And everybody on the call, I mean, I don't know how, it's hard sometimes to call people out if they're like, even like in an in-person meeting or something, somebody opens their laptops and starts typing away or something. Like everybody is. So as an organization, I think, how do you get everybody on board with that? Like, do you create documentation around that, or just talk about that in a meeting, or how do you do that?
Yeah, I think setting expectations and putting them on paper is great, because then when you have new hires, you don't want to rely on something you said 6 months ago when, 7 or 8 new people weren't even in the company, and expect that to be passed down. Cause it's kind of a copy of a copy of a copy by the time somebody gets that. So I think this really does need to be part of an organization's systems and, what the expectations are. And I think that the more that we can put that on paper, the less that we have to communicate it over and over again. And so, just making it an expectation and, showing people why that helps. It shows that you're giving somebody your attention. When you use your tablet to take notes or, start doodling on a pad, that's very inconsiderate. You need to be focusing on that person for that amount of time. And the managers should make sure that the content of the meeting isn't such that people feel like they can check out during the meeting. Right. So, to keep people interested. But I think setting those expectations, which is, something that I help people do as well, is you really kind of implementing that and then making sure people live up to it, including the managers.
Yeah. So make sure everyone is buying into this. So that's teams. So how about like client interactions and stuff? What kind of things do you think about there, or help organizations or people do better with their clients? I mean, are there similarities with teams? You know, that same kind of, I mean, obviously you're not going to be talking to a client about, this is our ground rules. But right. You have to kind of blend with what they're doing. But, where does etiquette fit in with that?
I think, when you talk about customer service, that's a big part of it, and how you're, dealing with conflict. How are you going to approach that? And maybe there's role playing that goes towards that, and empathy is a big part of that, and understanding, and what is that called? The, dynamic pause, which is also, shutting up occasionally to listen to what other people have to say. I think that, sometimes when we are quiet, we can find out so much more about an objection or somebody's, conflict, that we're really going into it with a desire to understand, not to, direct it in some way. But when you really seek to understand somebody and listen to somebody, then sometimes that's all they need. Sometimes it's not even something that you can do for them. It's not in your power. It's not in your wheelhouse. But just by listening to them, they will see that interaction as more effective than maybe it actually was.
Yeah, listening. Oh my gosh. I mean, that's a topic in and of itself. I mean, been in a lot of situations, whether it's clients or teams or whatever, where there is something an issue, or that other person is a little ramped up. Maybe they're a little upset about something, or it's a big deal to them. For you, maybe it's not as big a deal. I've been here, done this, or whatever, but we'll handle it. We'll take care of it. But that pause, what did you call it?
The dynamic pause, which I think is just a silly name for shutting up. Just be quiet.
The dynamic pause. Yeah, that's dynamic. That's important because as humans, we have a tendency to want to respond. And like, even if I'm talking to somebody, it's like, I want to respond. I have an answer for this. I want to respond. I'm thinking about how I'm going to respond to something while that person's talking. And so you're not even fully hearing what they're saying, because you're just thinking about, well, how can I rebuttal this right away or whatever? And it is a skill to be able to, okay, just calm down, just listen to what they're saying, let them vent, or let them just, tell their whole story or what they're talking about here, and then come up with that answer. And you can learn so much more from that. And it's also a calming thing, because, the thing with me, what I've noticed with like clients is they do get ramped up about things, because this is really important, especially if something affecting revenue or something on their end. Because I got a web design agency, or we manage websites and e-commerce stores and all this stuff. So things happen. It's always, and I don't know if this kind of is the same thing as kind of etiquette, but the etiquette is, for me, what I feel like is just, I'm the calming energy in the room. This is a problem. I'm not going to come back and like try to come up with excuses and all this. We're just going to come up with a solution. This is where we are. This is where we're at. Now let's fix the problem and just let them, be themselves and work through it. But it always calms the situation. And I think maybe part of etiquette is not matching somebody's energy always.
Yes, that is a huge part. And I think, what you said about not reacting, right away. I think sometimes we feel that, we're in the driver's seat. We're supposed to fix somebody's problems. And so we need to have a solution in an instant. And really, I don't know anybody I would think less of if they were to take more time to come up with a solution. And so that's one of the things that we teach in etiquette. And actually, it's the first thing that you teach in business etiquette, is that you think before you act. How many times have somebody said, why in the heck did you do that? Or, something like that. And you say, I don't know. What were you thinking? I wasn't.
Yeah.
And so that's the first step, is we have to think before we act. And every interaction that we have, whether it is in a meeting where there's conflict or over the phone or saying good morning or any of those things, is really a chance to build a relationship. And especially times where there's conflict or there's difficulty. I mean, that's, when you have a dinner party and everything goes perfectly, well, no one remembers anything about it, but you have, a small grease fire or something, and you can still shine through that moment. People are going to remember that. And so it is those difficult times that people remember and that let us shine. So, don't shy away from them, and don't try to put the fire out too early, let it go long enough where you can have a thoughtful reaction to it and think, okay, here's solution one. Who's affected? How does this affect people? And here's a couple other ones. And then which one is going to build our relationship that we have with somebody else? So, those are the things that we teach.
Yeah, that's good and important, because that's how you retain business. And so you retain good relationships and retain a good team as well. So I have an experience. I had experience this past day, and this is related to customer support. So I kind of have all areas over here. We've sold products before, and we're launching some new products. So we use Zendesk to communicate with us for customer support and stuff. And I had an interesting experience yesterday. It kind of ties into this, where the thinking part of it. A lot of times, you have somebody that comes in and they're complaining about something. Something happened, and you kind of first have to just kind of read it for what it is. Okay, this happened. I don't know why this happened, but we'll figure it out. And in this case, it was somebody that had purchased something from us years ago. And we had phased that product out, but they were still paying for it. So they're like, we know, and so they said, I know you closed this down, but how do we, and I can't access my members area. How do I cancel this? And so the first thing I did was, obviously, I said, well, first of all, I'm not sure why you're still paying a subscription. I needed more info to look up that person's order and get more information, because I couldn't even see it in our system. And then I said something to the effect of, now I recognize this person. So I said, it was great seeing you again. Even through that, right? Even though this is a problem, I'm recognizing that person, that I remember them. I hope all is well. Otherwise, let me check into this. And from there, got me the information. I canceled it right away. And then I said, I don't know if you've been following us, but we pivoted and we're launching these other products, and it's related to what she bought. And but the whole interaction was, I was just being kind. I didn't get upset about it. I just handled the situation. I, started having a conversation. I do this a lot, especially at customers. I love having these other random, I build into that conversation. I start talking because I see him as a person, not just somebody that's sending me a ticket and has a problem and I'm solving it. It's goodbye. I'm trying to build a relationship with this customer. And I said, we're doing, and she said, I must not be on your list. Can you add me to your list? And because she wants to follow what we're doing. And I said, yeah, for a long-time customer, I would love for you to get, to be part of this other product, or I'll add you in. I'll give them free access even, because they've been with us forever. And so that whole interaction, which was a problem initially, actually turned into somebody that wants to now learn more about what we're doing. And I think that's something how I try to handle things. And I think from an etiquette perspective or whatever, you're not turning this into just focusing on the problem. You're trying to also build a relationship at the same time every time you deal with a problem like that.
Yes, you did gold stars, etiquette gold stars for you. And that's exactly how we want things to go. And then, how did you feel after the conversation as well? I mean, you didn't, like you said, match that energy, the entire time. You were able to, turn it to your advantage. And it was because you were using, those principles that your parents taught you, and of etiquette and of being a good person. And I think that sometimes in business, nice guys finish last. Well, I don't believe that. And I don't care if that's the case. I would much rather be the nice guy and feel good about myself, feel good about my company, feel good about my interactions. And if you do that, there's no possible way you can finish last.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's about understanding, even through teams and clients. Everyone's humans. We're all humans. We all have our own problems and all. And you don't know what this person. Maybe this person's having a bad day. Maybe they're just and they're getting a little too ramped up about something. But like I said, I always try to come in with that calm energy, and I always try to think about. I try to remember people. I try to, talk to them like, you and I are talking just as a friend. And I think that makes a huge, huge difference in not only, that particular situation solving it and everyone walks away happy, but just long term. That's why she's probably been a customer of ours for 5 years, because I've always taken care of her and in every situation. And I always try to go above and beyond. I always try to then offer them something or try to do more for them if I can. And I just ask how, they're doing. That doesn't, but it doesn't always end that way. Or sometimes some people they just can't get off the angry wagon or whatever.
Right.
But then you just got to just let it go. And sometimes it does go poorly, but that's just going to happen in business.
Yeah. I think as long as you feel good about what you did and your reactions to them, then, we can't save them all. And, we can't change people at their core. We can only change ourselves. But in doing that, then who else cares? Who else matters? So I think that it is, really, being mindful of our own reactions more than it is to deflect or reflect or diminish the other person's reaction.
Yeah. So, I mean, how does etiquette kind of play into your own kind of consulting business and anything? You got any good stories around how you've applied it and anything that any good stories related to that have been positive?
The reason I started teaching etiquette is because I felt like I was always in an awkward situation, and I felt like candid camera always, like just the darndest things always happened to me. And I thought, I'm going to learn all of these tips and tricks and rules to get myself out of these awkward situations. Well, I'm still the girl that walks out of the bathroom with toilet paper on the bottom of her foot. None of those things have changed by learning etiquette. Things are just as awkward as they used to be. But I think now I can see it from a little bit bigger angle, that no one's focusing on me. And people are not judging you in a way that you think that they are. When I teach dining etiquette, or I go to places and they're eating, and then I'm speaking afterwards, I always say, who was afraid that I would sit at your table while you were eating today? and I know that that's a fear that people have because they're afraid of being judged. But I'm saying, but I'll say, honestly, no one was more nervous eating today than I was. Because to be the expert in the room,
on you.
Yeah. And so you think about, awkward situations and those kinds of things. But I really have learned that, that people aren't focusing on you like you think they are. And hopefully they're not judging you like you're afraid that they are, because we're all trying to work through our own awkwardness and our own situations that we get ourselves into. So, I think just, bigger picture, that is one thing that I learned that I've applied to my life.
Yeah. That's something you learn in your personal life too. Like you realize, especially as you get older, like people really aren't thinking about you much. You know?
No.
It's like you're worried about what others think, and really they're not thinking about you at all. They're worried about their family and their own activities and their neighbors and their work and their business and or whatever they're doing, and they're not really thinking about you most of the time. And it is true, and it's the same in business. Like even this conversation, right? So I come into this conversation, and I know you're an etiquette expert, but I also know that you were in newsrooms for 20 plus years, and I'm kind of, what am I doing? I'm basically producing something right here, and I'm kind of a little self-conscious about that on some level, although this will be number like 92 or 93. So I have a little bit of experience with it, but I'm self-taught. So hopefully I'm doing okay. But we all think that way. It's all like, they're like, what is this person thinking about? And you're probably not even thinking about that. You're just thinking about what your thoughts are, what you're talking about, and the topic. And
yeah, and so, I think we're all afraid of being found out, to an extent, and imposter syndrome is something people talk about,
right.
A lot. But it is when we're doing something new that creeps up. When we're learning something, that's what's awkward. When we're doing something new, that's what's awkward. So I need to learn to embrace, those awkward situations, because without them, I'm just treading water and I'm not going anywhere. And so, I think you can't have a setback unless you're trying to go forward. And so It really is, a matter of taking on something new and producing something new and taking on a new business and trying new things. I think that is just the key to having a fulfilling life.
Yeah. Imposter syndrome is a big thing in like web developers, designers, all that. You always hear people talking about imposter syndrome, where you just don't feel like, you look at everybody else and everyone else is amazing, but for some reason you feel like you shouldn't be here among this crowd. But usually it's, there's just everyone though is struggling with that, everyone at some point. But I think a lot of it can be overcome through repetition and honing your skills and just, doing things enough. But in the beginning, of anything, whether it's even when I started this web design agency, I didn't know I didn't feel like I knew what I was doing, or should I even be charging the money I'm charging? Because I'm, what are people going to think? They're not going to, but over time that kind of starts to fade, because you just, through repetition and just doing it and putting yourself out there and challenging yourself. Yeah. So you enjoy consulting, you enjoy doing this type of work. It's something you've been doing your whole life has kind of led up to this.
It is amazing that it has, and I just, you look back and you never thought at the time that I was like, oh man, I was really laying the groundwork for this, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago. And then, you come to a point where you're like, hey, I got to do something different for me. And then you look around, you're like, well, heck, all I got to do is flip the switch and maybe, accelerate, 10 miles an hour higher than I am already. But to do something that you're passionate about and that you really hope helps people, and whether it's, students for me or kids or adults or, individuals, I just, this is what gets me up in the morning, and this is what makes me excited. And I, love helping people and helping them see the good in themselves and the good in others, because I think there's a tendency to think, everyone thinks we're all going to, hell in a handbasket. Every generation thinks that. Yeah. And, it really is about your perception and your reality so much more than it is about what's going on around you.
Yeah. No, it's so the people that are successful that I talk to, and again, also looking at kind of where I landed at this age, you look back, it's like a lot of times and I love digging into people's stories because it's always this kind of common thread of, somebody, it's not always a perfect journey, but like where they land, it's like, yeah, that's what you should be doing. That's because you have this passion and this experience that just kind of led up to this naturally. And here you are. But that whole journey, you're probably at various points like, what am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. Where should I be? And, or maybe you settle in for a while but suddenly it's like you look at this whole picture of all your experiences, all this stuff, and you realize, oh, this is what I should be doing. This is what all these experiences. I had a friend once that told me, it's a number of years ago, I was kind of like, so I was into web development. I started freelancing like over 10 years ago. And I'm like, I wish I was doing this whole time. I should have been doing this in the early 90s. I should have, because I love this. I love what I'm doing right now. And I had gone and done all this other stuff. I built internet businesses. I'd done, insurance. I did all kinds of stuff. And he just kind of stopped me and he said, no, Matt, you shouldn't have been doing it this whole time, because all that experience, all that unique experience makes you unique right now. And it has kind of created this person that, few people are going to be able to compete with that because you have a very unique skill set and very unique. So that journey, that's always fascinating to me. It's like where you end up. You did this thing in a newsroom and you were, a producer all those years. But that and through learning about etiquette and stuff that you landed here, and now you're like you've created the polite company and you're doing awesome. The other thing too that kind of, I noted as well as something that is kind of, you're the right person for the consulting job, is that you enjoy seeing people's successes. You enjoy impacting people and helping people. And just like me, I like to take on a new client that's a mess. Their website's a mess. Their business is their revenue is a mess because their website's not up. But then you take them through this roadmap to help them improve that situation over time. And then you see at the end of that tunnel, or whatever you want to call it, they're in a good place. They're happy. They're in a better server. All this stuff, and you help them get there. And that feeling of seeing them in a better, happier place, that's got to give you a lot of motivation too, and enjoyment.
Yeah, it's really fulfilling. And, I hear from students after class and I tell people, my 5 favorite words are, I have an etiquette question. And, once you're my friend, or once you've been a student, or, just a perfect stranger even, emails me or sends me a question. I love that. I love that idea of, just this little microcosm, just that little dilemma that they had, or, something that pops up and they, wonder, gosh, what should I do here? To be able to help somebody with that is just amazing. And, that's what, one of the things that I love about this as much as training people is just the follow up with them.
Yeah. What the people you work with, are they people that seek you out, or are people receptive, or is it like existing business owners that feel like they need help in this area, or you just happen upon them in some conference somewhere, or how does that?
Usually people are seeking me out to, either change, a part of the culture, or tackle one specific problem that they might have, or to implement some standards in the workplace. But, I would be, it would be difficult for me to go up to somebody and suggest that they might want to. One of the things that I will ask people is, when we start something, I'm saying, first of all, is this a punishment? And if so, what was the crime that was committed? So, we can rectify that. But, usually it's not. Usually it's just, a group of people who are somehow, just doing this for development. And whether it's students who are, getting ready to interview, or, it's people who are any number of roles that they're, just trying to kind of level up. And I think that it is definitely a self-improvement, and it's something that they have to buy into. So it's not a good punishment.
Yeah. It's something maybe a company's identified that they're having a cultural problem, or like there's too much conflict or something's happening in their business that they need to get help from the polite company. Like what's your perfect avatar? Like who is your, like, if who do you like to work with the most?
I like to work with businesses the most because, that's hard because this summer I taught dining etiquette to a class of 300 high school students, and that was amazing as well. And you think, what I love to do is change people's minds, because, some of those kids came in there and they would rather have been doing anything else than that.
Sure. Yeah.
And then, by the end, they're writing thank you notes to me, and I've changed their mind about what etiquette is, because it's not this big set of rules that you have to memorize, and it's not this judgment, and it's not this formal thing. It's this thing that we do to build relationships. And it doesn't matter how much money you have or your last name or, your education, anyone can do this. And so I think when anybody learns that, they have a different idea of what it is and how it can apply to their lives. So, the perfect client is somebody who wants to learn.
Yeah. The amazing thing about this too is like learning how to hold a fork or learning how to do anything like in a dining situation. There's something, once you learn it, now you have that throughout your life, especially as you were younger and stuff. It's even I was in the restaurant hospitality at one stage of my life early on in my 20s, learning how to set a table and how all that, you learn a lot in that area too. But that's always stuck with me. I know exactly where a fork, which fork should go here. And and now I just have that.
Right. And then once you learn those, you have the confidence. And so you don't get to a business meeting going, oh my gosh, they're going to know that I don't know which fork to use. You already know what to do that. So that's, the rules do give you confidence. And then you don't worry about what to do. You worry about, who's around the table and the interactions and the relationships there.
So you're learning this stuff so you can forget about it. So it becomes just comes natural. Yeah. And you can focus on actual what's important, which is listening to others and interacting. Well, it's a great conversation. I appreciate you joining us today. If somebody wanted to find you on the interwebs out there, where is the best place they can find you? You got a website? And
yes, it's thepolitecompany.com.
You got that domain? That's a great domain.
Yes, thanks. Yeah, it all works out.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Did you get the domain before you chose because a lot of times when I get domains, like I'll see what domain's available, then I'll figure out what I'm going to call my business. Did you do it that way?
Yes.
Like,
I don't know if that's the right. I don't know if it's the right thing to do, but it sure is easier than having 2 or 3 things that people need to remember.
Yes, very true, very true. And are you on like LinkedIn or elsewhere on the web?
If you look up The Polite Company on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook, you'll find me there.
Great. Well, it's been a very polite conversation. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Builders Crew. Until next time. That's all for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed that. Again, please subscribe if you haven't already and give us a thumbs up if we deserve it. If you want to comment on this episode's page, provide me with requests on topics for future episodes, or inquire about being a guest, please find your way to thebuilders.fm. You can contact me there or add a comment under these show notes. Now a word from our sponsor, my agency, Unified Web Design. We build custom websites, features, we maintain websites, we work with agencies to fulfill their web design and development needs, and more. If you're interested in our services or are looking for an agency to work with as a partner to build awesome sites for your clients, feel free to reach out to me at unifiedwebdesign.com. There's a handy contact me link at the top. Fill out that form and it will open a ticket, and that ticket will find its way to me. Thanks for joining me today. We'll see you next time.